On the Buzz Meter this Sunday, Donald Trump getting hammered by the media for his comments on Muslims and what he says happened on 9/11, for appearing to mock a disabled reporter, and for the rockets he fires off on Twitter.
Are you aware that the liberal media and the Democratic Party in general trying to paint you as a racist? Are you aware of that?
I think so, but I think people know better than that.
You have a political candidate, your candidate, you come on night after night and defend no matter what despicable, horrible, un-American, racist, inflammatory thing he said. This is demagoguery, it is dangerous, and somebody's going to go hurt some Muslim as a result of this kind of hatred.
This as the New York Times and the Washington Post denounced Trump as a racist, a liar, and a bully, and a top editor at the Daily Beast calls for a boycott of his businesses. Are Trump's journalistic critics going too far? Chris Christie on the media and the coverage of Syrian refugees, his new focus on 9/11, and whether his campaign is making a comeback.
I'm not in this for a book deal or a Fox News show. I'm in this to win and be president of the United States.
President Obama getting skewered for saying the media need to show perspective in covering ISIS. Is that unfair? Plus, the author of a #1 bestseller on George Bush 41 says he thought the former president was kind of like this guy.
Well, let me just sum up. On track, stay the course, 1,000 points of light, stay the course.
John Meacham on journalists, and he pleads guilty here, rushing to judgment. I'm Howard Kurtz, and this is Media Buzz. The New York Times editorial page is accusing Donald Trump of peddling racist lies. The Washington Post editorial page says Trump is running an ugly campaign, and the only way to beat a bully is to stand up to him. And that's just the beginning of a new and more virulent wave of media attacks. The floodgates started opening after Trump spoke of seeing thousands of people in New Jersey cheering as the Twin Towers came down. No one has found any evidence of that. The Washington Post gave him 4 Pinocchios, but Trump claimed vindication after finding a 2001 story from that paper saying authorities were questioning several people in New Jersey for allegedly holding tailgate-style parties on rooftops on 9/11.
But fortunately, somebody in the Washington Post wrote that, and they'll try and deny it. They'll probably say, well, we made a mistake, which I almost like that better. Then I could show you how dishonest they all are. I might like that better. Let them say that. But they'll find some reason to deny it. They'll call it a typo.
Joining us now to examine the impact of the media assault on Trump, Matt Lewis, senior contributor at the Daily Caller and a columnist for The Week. Susan Faricio, chief congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner. And Simon Rosenberg, president of the New Democratic Network. Let's do a lightning round here. Matt Lewis, do you think the New York Times, Washington Post, and other media outlets calling Trump a racist, a liar, a bully, has any impact on his campaign?
No. I think they're right. I think they're allowed to do it. It's an editorial. It's not straight reporting.
No question about that.
And I think he is lying. But I don't think it matters, because I think that it actually maybe helps Trump. So, the people who support Trump think the media, it's a backlash against political correctness and liberal media. This plays right into his hands, actually.
Simon Rosenberg, Matt stole my next question to you, which is, can there be a backlash against this sort of language on the media's part, and can that actually end up helping Trump?
It's possible, but the evidence so far is that Trump is having a hard time growing beyond this very core base that he has, 35% of the Republican electorate. If he's going to be president, he's got to get moderate Republicans, independents, moderate Democrats, and you look at the head-to-head polling with Hillary Clinton right now, and he's doing the worst of all the major Republican candidates. So there is evidence that it may be working to fire up his troops, but it's not working with the broader electorate that he needs to win the election.
Susan Faricio, let me read for you a couple of tweets that were put up. We put it up on the screen by Noah Shackman. He's the executive editor of the Daily Beast. One says, let's get real. If you are renting in a Trump building or playing a round of golf at a Trump resort, you are supporting racism and neo-fascism. And another one, 6 months ago, you could say you were doing business with Trump without endorsing his views. 8,000 racist moments later, I guess that's an exact number, that's no longer feasible. What do you think of a journalist, a top editor at a website, calling for a boycott of Trump's businesses?
Daily Beast readers probably are loving that tweet. But
Why so?
Well, because it's a liberal-leaning kind of publication, online publication, and that's who they attract. That's who they want to be logging on and reading. I think that's the kind of thing that will excite people, and it's clickbait, as they say. But, it's really migrating from journalism into activism. And so you have to question, he's running the Daily Beast, and now he's calling on us, going after people who are just staying at a Trump motel. That's activism. That's not journalism.
Sure smells like activism to me. John Avlon, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Beast, says that all of his staffers are entitled to their own opinion on social media, but this guy is obviously a top editor. And Avlon, who actually worked for Rudy Giuliani in the past, a core part of our mission is to stand up to bullies, bigots, and hypocrites. So he's not a Trump fan either. All right. So Trump has said repeatedly at these rallies, he is not backing down one iota, that he saw thousands of Arabs in New Jersey celebrating on 9/11 on television. He says no one else has seen this or found the footage. State officials say it's not true. But then he cites this paragraph about an investigation of whether there were some, not hundreds, not thousands, as saying that shows he's right.
I'm reminded of I think it was a Daniel Patrick Moynihan quote, "You're entitled to your own opinion, you are not entitled to your own facts." Donald Trump, the problem is it's hard to hold him accountable because he has this Trump reality distortion filter. He's going to say, no, I saw it. I have a great memory. There were thousands of people cheering. When it happened, it didn't happen. And he is lying. And I think that it is a responsibility of the media to hold politicians accountable, even if they are Republican or conservative politicians, and even if liberal bias does exist, which I think it does.
Simon, what kept this story alive is that this piece in the Washington Post, 2001, which, by the way, didn't say the reporter had seen any of this, just that authorities were investigating. They later said they found nothing to this tailgate party allegation, is by Serge Kovaleski, then at the Washington Post, now at the New York Times. He suffers from a congenital condition which limits the use of his arms. He's a great guy and a great reporter. Trump has now been going after him, saying he's grandstanding on this and he's taking back the story. And at a rally, and you've all seen this footage, it appeared to many people that Trump was mocking Kovaleski's disability.
Yeah, listen, we've discussed on air here that Donald Trump knows what he's doing, and he's pretty talented when it comes to playing the media game. I think this has been a huge mistake that he's made in the last week. He's kept this story alive. What he does...
Maybe he wants to keep this story alive.
But I think what he's been very effective at, Howard, is that he's understood that he can get in trouble, and then the next day reporters move on, and they there's a new news story, and so it all just evaporates and goes into the collective memory of the media, the media hole. And I think in this case, though, he kept, I think, what was a negative story around for extra days in a way that is showing that, look, he's a wild, volatile candidate. He's going to make mistakes. He's not perfect. This is a mistake, I think.
Well, Trump says that he didn't remember Kovaleski, didn't realize he had this disability. He insists he was not mocking him. Kovaleski says he covered him for the New York Daily News back in the day and has interviewed him 10 times. And by the way, it doesn't seem to me that Kovaleski actually is backing off the story. He didn't report that he had seen this. He reported that authorities were investigating. And again, he didn't say hundreds or thousands. They were investigating some number of individuals. Trump really got into it this morning with Chuck Todd on Meet the Press. Let's take a brief look at that.
This didn't happen in New Jersey. There were plenty of reports, and you're feeding a stereotype.
Chuck, it did happen in New Jersey. I have hundreds of people that agree with me.
You're running for president of the United States. Your words matter. Truthfulness matters. Fact-based stuff matters.
Chuck, take it easy, Chuck. Just play cool.
I really think Trump, I disagree with you. I think Trump has won this round. He's won this round. It looked like at the beginning, oh my God, he's finally gone too far. I'm not sure Trump can go too far. I really am not sure there's really anything he can say at this point. If you look at the reaction, look what he just said on Meet the Press. He said, I got all kinds of calls and tweets about people who reported the same thing. And even though the Washington Post didn't say there were thousands of people, the people who support me say there were thousands of people. So he's winning. You can telling Chuck Todd to play it cool because Chuck Todd is getting so emotional trying to get Trump to, trying to get him on this, but he couldn't.
Well, Trump says he wants an apology from the New York Times.
That's right. He turns it right back on them. Punches back twice as hard, and it works. It works for Trump.
Well, so do you agree that he, in pure television terms, if he's telling Chuck calm down and he wins the exchange, or is Chuck Todd doing what journalists should do and trying to pin him down on the facts?
I think both. I think Chuck Todd's doing the right thing. I think it probably doesn't hurt Trump because the problem is I think our culture has changed. I mean, I don't, it used to be, especially if you were a conservative, a family values conservative, that mocking somebody with a physical deformity would be seen as beneath the dignity of somebody running for president, inhumane, certainly not compassionate. I don't know that our culture cares that much about things like that anymore, and that is the indictment.
What about Trump? And Bill O'Reilly chided him on this, retweeting what turned out to be bogus crime statistics about racial murders, black versus black, black on white, white on black. And Trump says, I can't check everything, and it's just a retweet.
Yeah, look, he's trying to change the rules, right? I mean,
he is changing.
Yeah, you're right. He's already changed the rules. How's that? I mean, he's already changed the rules, and I think the question is, we will know whether this experiment is effective. So far, it's working pretty well for him, but I still think there's a lot of evidence that it's actually not going to play well over time. But we'll see.
Ben Carson initially was asked about this. Did you know about Muslims in New Jersey, not in the Middle East, celebrating on 9/11? And he said that he had seen it. And then with Megyn Kelly, he said this.
You admit to a lack of caution in answering that question.
Yeah. I mean, I thought we were just talking about the fact that Muslims were inappropriately celebrating. I didn't know that they had an agenda behind the question.
An agenda behind the question. What he was asked at a news conference was, did you see this? Yes. Did you see it in New Jersey? Yes.
That was fine. I thought his walk back was fine, but his larger problem really is just foreign policy in general.
Which is, if I can interrupt for just half a second, he went to Jordan this weekend to meet with Syrian refugees. It was kind of shrouded in secrecy, but journalists didn't know the details. No reporters were taken along, but we do get the pictures of Dr. Carson meeting with refugees, and of course he's on several Sunday shows this morning.
Sure, talking about that, and I think he needs to bolster his foreign policy credentials, and the media is absolutely right to be asking those questions. And to connect that with Trump, we spend all this time playing gotcha with the media with Trump and not nailing him down on substance. He is the front runner, and we're not doing that.
Just briefly, the terrible shooting at the Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado. 3 people dead, one of them a police officer. First, the liberal Huffington Post and other liberal sites, and now the Washington Post today, questioning why only 3 Republican candidates put out any statements about this. First, it was Ted Cruz, and then later Jeb Bush and John Kasich. Any statement, regardless of your views on abortion, regardless of your views on Planned Parenthood, expressing sympathy for the victims. Is that a fair criticism to point this out?
I think so. They're running for president. It's a big deal. And I wouldn't draw too many broad implications, but I think it should be quicker to put out something on this.
Yeah, just at least say, hey, I'm real sorry about what happened. I think the problem is that these candidates are very concerned about what they say on this issue because it's just treacherous. On Meet the Press this morning, Donald Trump was asked about this over and over, where Chuck Todd, I believe, tried to connect his favoritism of the Planned Parenthood videos and what they showed with perhaps this outcome in Colorado, and he wouldn't do it. And I think that's what these other candidates are worried about. They don't want someone to make that connection, like they're supporting the violence.
It's always dangerous to politicians of spouting rhetoric that then leads to violence. So let me get a break here. You can comment on Twitter at Howard Kurtz. You can also email us, mediabuzz@foxnews.com. I had Chris Christie on one pundit's conclusion that he's battled his way back to respectability. But when we come back, conservative commentators hammering President Obama for saying the press needs to show some perspective in covering the war on terror.